to mysterious genetics of the ancient Israelites. The history of the ancient Israelites is surrounded by mystery and faith, with many questions that remain unanswered. One of these questions is the genetic origin of the people of Israel. While the Bible details their stories extensively, scientific evidence of the genetic lineage of the ancient Israelites remains largely a field of speculation. Various DNA studies conducted on contemporary populations, especially among Jews from different parts of the world, suggest that there is a common genetic link that traces back to the ancient Israelites. However, these findings do not offer a simple answer. The genetics of the ancient Israelites seem to form a complex mosaic, with a diversity of influences over thousands of years. The original Israelites, according to the Bible, were a landless people, formed by nomadic tribes before establishing the Kingdom of Israel in the Promised Land. During this period, interactions with other peoples, such as the Egyptians, Canaanites, and Phoenicians, were inevitable and, no doubt, had an impact on the genetic makeup of the Israelites. One of the most fascinating aspects of Israelite genetics is the concept of a Semitic root. The people of Israel have a strong genetic connection with other Semitic populations from the Middle East, such as Arabs, Phoenicians, and Arameans. This link suggests that, although the tribes of Israel formed as a distinct group, they were, in many ways, part of a broader cultural and genetic network. As the Israelites settled in Canaan and formed a prosperous civilization, mixed marriages and cultural assimilation likely played an important role in shaping the genetic makeup of the people. Biblical accounts speak of marital alliances between the Israelites and other peoples in the region, including Egyptians and Hittites, indicating that genetic diversity was an essential feature from ancient times. However, the genetics of the ancient Israelites cannot be analyzed solely through the lens of intermarriage. The preservation of pure family lines, such as those of the Levites or the royal families of David and Solomon, is an important part of the story. This suggests that, despite many cultural and ethnic fusions, some lineages sought to maintain their genetic and cultural identity intact. In modern times, DNA studies of Jewish populations around the world, from Sephardim to Ashkenazim, offer further clues about the genetic continuity of the ancient Israelites. Genetic research indicates that, even with the forced dispersions and exiles that took place over the centuries, many of these populations retain genetic markers that can be traced back to biblical times. The understanding of the genetics of the ancient Israelites is, therefore, a fascinating field of study that combines history, archaeology, and biology. The mystery surrounding the genetics of the ancient Israelites is compounded by the lack of comprehensive archaeological evidence directly linking them to specific genetic markers. Most of what we know about their genetic heritage comes from a combination of biblical texts, historical records, and modern genetic studies. Yet, these sources often conflict, creating a complex puzzle for researchers to unravel. One of the key challenges in understanding the ancient Israelites' genetic makeup is the mobility and diaspora of their people throughout history. From their early days in Egypt, through the Babylonian exile, to the later Roman dispersion, the Israelites were a people on the move. This constant migration led to an extensive blending of cultures and genetic lineages. As a result, the ancient Israelites' genetic structure cannot be easily defined by a single, homogeneous group. Instead, their DNA reflects centuries of intermarriage, conquest, exile, and assimilation with a variety of neighboring peoples. The Bible itself provides some clues about these interactions. For example, the Israelites were surrounded by many other Semitic-speaking peoples, such as the Arameans, Moabites, Ammonites, and Edomites. These neighboring groups shared linguistic and cultural similarities with the Israelites, but also had distinct differences. The fact that the Israelites occasionally intermarried with these neighboring tribes suggests that their genetic composition was influenced by these surrounding populations. In addition, Israelite history includes several periods of conquest and colonization, with the Israelites both absorbing and being absorbed by foreign cultures. In addition to the Semitic connection, the Israelites' genetic heritage also shows signs of connections with other ancient Mediterranean peoples. Genetic studies have found similarities between the DNA of modern Jewish populations and that of other ancient populations from the Eastern Mediterranean, such as the Phoenicians, Greeks, and even the ancient Egyptians. These connections are not surprising, given that historical ties between Israel and these civilizations, especially during periods of trade, diplomacy, and conquest, The Israelites, after all, were not an isolated group. They interacted with the world around them for centuries.